It's been a little while since I've hopped on the stream. Basically, had some equipment break, has been just a lot of things going on. But in the meantime, this is a mobile setup that we got going on right now that I'm pretty stoked about. So basically, we got the laptop here. The webcam you're actually seeing right now is the iPhone being streamed over into OBS. And then for the microphone, you'll see I don't have anything in front of me. There's no big podcast mic. And what we're trying out right now is the DJI mic, which is a wireless, basically like lavalier. And so typically, most people clip it on the shirt. I actually have it inside of the shirt right now on basically hanging on a necklace. Did some sound tests earlier. I think it sounded pretty decent. So hopefully this comes through pretty well on the stream. So we're trying out some new stuff today, but I'm personally pretty stoked because I was really tired of having the giant microphone in my face when I was talking to the camera. More importantly, if I accidentally moved away, looking at my laptop over here, it was easy to just shift away, especially when some of those podcast mics really want you to be like directly speaking into it. And so for those who've been following, I know one of the things that's been a little bit of a struggle has been getting weekly cadence as far as stream goes, content. And for the meantime, I think what I've come to accept is that my schedule, especially with traveling and everything, has been really tricky as of late. And so rather than these broad proclamations regarding weekly streams and that kind of stuff, where I was basically holding myself to an ideal I really couldn't live up to at that time because it just was hard to narrow it down. At this point, basically what I think we're transitioning to is I'm going to try my best to schedule the streams ahead of time so people know in advance. It's not going to be as ideal in terms of having the same set schedule at the moment while I figure things out. But at the same time, what we are going to do is we're going to have the live stream sit on Twitch. Actually, back to the original one, I was playing with a simultaneous YouTube Twitch live stream at one point, but I really do like the ability to edit down the videos after the live stream, especially because a lot of times certain things could be cut and there's intermittent things. And so what I noticed on the YouTube channel was that because it was streaming straight in and people were looking at the recordings, they were getting caught up with trying to figure out where things started, what things to cut, that kind of stuff. I'm just excited to get back to the more of the editing process and have the YouTube be the more refined process of this. So with that, let's do this. We're here today for another episode of Build with Ben. And today, the problem we're going to be looking at is something that's been on my mind a bit. Anyone who's been watching this channel a bit knows that I use Obsidian a lot and a really big fan of this sort of local first approach. And so I'll get into the kind of the theory of that, I think, another time, since usually I'd want to do infographics for that stuff. But typically, if we think of most of our software these days, they're cloud-based apps. In other words, you need to hook up to the internet and you're relying on someone else's database to manage everything that you're working with. And one of the things I really love about Obsidian is that everything is on my computer. So with or without an internet connection, I can use my data in order to interface with it. But more importantly, it's really easy to work with because rather than having, say, a local database, which theoretically means that, yes, you technically have your data local first. I like the idea of having plain text files that you can actually work with, which is something Obsidian does really well. And I know while there may be performance limitations ultimately with that, I still think there's something nice about people who are building apps, especially when it's for their own usage, that they don't need to spin up an entire database in order to do it. And more importantly, that their data is easy to access and work with. So I thought today would be a fun build with Ben to figure out a prototype using the Chrome local file API system. I know we've done that a little bit in the past, but kind of get back into it and what that might look like. And then that way, for those who are thinking of building something similar, at least you can see a little bit of what my thought process was through it. Take a look at the code because I'll be open sourcing whatever we do in this session in GitHub. So you'll make sure that it'll be in the description below for those watching this recording. But then otherwise, yeah, let's just talk things through and from there. So I guess let's jump right in. So first thing first, what I want to do, I mentioned that we're going to set up the repo in order to make sure everyone gets access to everything. So it's been a little while since I've created a new project. So let's just go ahead and warm up the muscles. So one of the ways you could create a new repo, absolutely, is we could do like the whole go into GitHub, create a new repo. But, as we try to get faster as developers, one of the things I always try to do is get a little bit faster with some of the terminal command line stuff, because you can sort of skip a lot of the boilerplate. And more importantly, it's just, or basically you can skip a lot of the boilerplate. So I believe it's just GitHub. So this is the GitHub CLI. So if you do GitHub version, yep, there we go. So I believe it's GitHub repo create. And, oh, right, we can create a local one or an existing one. Okay, now I remember what my workflow is. My workflow typically is we try to create a new project first. So let's go ahead and take a look at the Nuxt 3 docs because that's what we'll be playing with to kind of get started. Let's see if there's anything been changed since I've last started doing this. And it looks like it's just an npx init latest, basically. So npx nuxt latest init, and we're going to call this project a local, I believe, file API prototype. Boom, boom, boom. Yep, do your thing. Oh, this is cool. We got the new CLI update. Very cool. I'm going to use npm since that's what most people have. I know there was yarn, bun, and even pnpm. I've been hearing a lot about pnpm, but personally, I know that some people have had hit or misses with it, and the people who tend to really like it are those who are authoring libraries. And I still can't explain the advantages of pnpm in a sort of easy layman terms kind of way. So for now, I kind of stay away from it because it just makes it more accessible for everyone who's kind of working with it. Cool. So we have our local file API prototype, which is great. But you'll see here in my terminal that this is not a Git repo yet. And the reason for that is because this is just, so actually let me open this up in VS Code. And you can see here, there is a git ignore, but there's no .git file. So we're just going to git init. There we go. We've initialized our new file, new app. Let's add everything, git add, git commit. This is just a config setup, Nuxt 3 boilerplate. Whoop, I can't, I typed too quickly. So, oh, interesting. Git log. Okay, I guess that message is sitting there with the typo. Normally, if you saw, I do this git nevermind command, which is an alias I have to basically reset the head so that I can basically update the commit message. There probably is a way to do this, but for now, that's not the main thing we're here for. So let's sort of continue on, shall we? Let's create a new one and push this existing repo to GitHub. Now, the reason I like this is because we were talking about skipping boilerplate. And so typically when you create a repo on GitHub, you have to go through this whole process where you clone it down locally. Then you have to create the project with like your whatever framework you're doing. And then you have to like kind of move it in. Then you got to push. There's a bit of stuff. So I figured the streamlined approach is create your project first, initialize the Git repo, initialize the Git aspect of it. And then that way we can just push it directly over into your account. Let's see, here we add a remote, we have the origin, sure, bum, 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 and then that's it. And so the benefit of that is now if we go over to BenCodeZen and we take a look at the repo, you'll see, boom, everything's already created. You don't have to worry about like adding a remote, like a lot of the boilerplate gets skipped. And so to be honest, that little rant right there probably deserves its own blog post for a workflow, just that it can be documented in case anyone else wants to follow that. So I'll make a note of that for the future in the later on. But oh man, oh well, this will go away at some point. That boilerplate. Yeah, no, wish it wasn't the case. Okay. That said, what are we doing? Okay, yes, we are gonna. Oh wait, everything's already set up. Is it ready to go? Yeah, I think we good. Cool. So let's take a look. Okay, great. We have our Nuxt site. We're good. Okay, we're good to go. All right. So in terms of building our prototype, so when we're thinking of a sort of full stack solution, right, especially with things something like Nuxt, if you're using something like Vue, thinking about working with the local file system is basically as straightforward as thinking of your Chrome file system API, which actually I'm talking about that. I might as well pull it up right now. Oh, there you go. File system access API. Let me drop that in as a resource for later so that you all have that. Okay. Basically, for those who are new to this, basically Chrome as the browser has built in a way for you to interact with a user's local files. They have basically grant you permission, and then you can go in and update, edit things. And so that's one way to do it. And then the other way, which you typically think of when you're thinking about interacting with some sort of backend and data, is some sort of backend approach. And so typically we're thinking of like a node server, and then you might be thinking, oh, what backend language do I use? And typically that's a bit of, well, boilerplate for people to deal with, especially because those coming from the web world might not be as familiar with node APIs, and there's more barriers to that. And so with Nuxt 3, for example, there is a kind of question of how do we do this if we want to do it with a server, right? Should we do it with a server? And I've thought about this a couple different ways. And what I've landed with for today is I want to stick with the Chrome local file system because one, as I mentioned earlier, it lowers that barrier of entry for those who might not be as familiar with node technologies. And then going forward now, we can probably figure out a way to build like a version of this prototype that uses the Nuxt 3 server. But then again, I think the other advantage that we have by using the file system access API is that you'll have the ability to basically deploy it a lot easier to different platforms. Whereas if you have some sort of server that you're trying to deploy and let people use your app, well, the problem with that is you're going to find that what was I going to say? Oh, you're going to need a deployment service that can actually host all the different endpoints that you're going to hit. It needs to be able to run, etc. So since we're not going to worry about that particular learning barrier right now, we're going to stick with the file system access API. Okay, so now that we know that, let's think about kind of what we're trying to do, shall we? So as an app, basically, I've always thought most apps basically have the simple operations of having to what? You have to basically read data, you got to be able to update data, create, update, and you'll be able to delete data, right? Your basic CRUD, create, read, update, delete, CRUD. Your basic CRUD workflow. And so the thing here is that what we're gonna do here is we're gonna play around with this and then try to build some API endpoints, basically. Okay. We're trying to build some like endpoints that will let us do the various things, even though we're not technically setting up any API endpoints. So let's play around with that and see how that goes. So first thing first, let's take a look. So when it comes to the file system access API, we have to be able to actually get permission from the user in order to do any set things, right? So for the first thing first, we're going to want to go ahead and let's say we want to actually pick a directory that users can use. So I'm going to say, let's see, open a directory and enumerating context, store file directory handles and permissions. So this is one aspect we got to do because you don't want a website to be able to just access an entire user's directory, right? There's a lot of security issues with that. So there is a thing where we have to basically grant permission for that. So let's see, sort file handle directories. Yep. Nope. Okay, I just want to open a directory and save the path. So this is a verified permission. Yep. Okay, show directory picker. Okay, here we go. This is what I think I'm looking for. Okay, so let's start playing around. Let's keep it real simple. All right, so what we're going to do here is we're going to do that. We're going to do a script setup block and then directory handle. This is great. It'll do that. And then we'll just log the handle. And then all we got to do here is we got to add a button that click. And then, or you know what? I'll say get directory handle. Okay, get directory handle. And then we'll just say get directory. All right, cool. So if we jump over to our localhost 3000 now and refresh, ooh, window is not defined. That's no bueno. Okay, what is going on here? Script setup. Yep. I mean, it's not defined, but we're in the client at this point. So this is a little bit odd to me. Let's zoom out a little bit to make it easier. App.view. Why is it not like that? Is it because it's assuming there might be a client around it? All right, so I'm going to use this component that Nuxt provides, which basically allows you to say that, hey, only do this on the client. We're not going to worry about any sort of, oh, this is a little bit weird now. H1, hello. Ooh, something is super weird. Await window. Yeah, it already knows what it is. What are you talking about? Dun. Okay, that's good. So it's breaking the compile here. Okay. This is weird. Oh, I know why. Silly me. This should be an async function. This is how you know it's been a little while. Okay, there we go. Then we do that. There we go. And then we can basically get a, basically that says is directory handle. And then we'll say directory handle dot value equals await this. There we go. Okay, much better. And then actually after that, we'll just log dir handle dot value. This is great. Then we'll add this back in. Get dir handle. Get directory. Say whoops. Okay. Much better. Okay. Yes. Okay. So in case you run into that bug again in the future, basically what I had done incorrectly was I basically set up a constant to already await the window. But we got to remember that when you're working with Nuxt 3, there is a kind of a loading component to it. And so if it hasn't loaded and it's immediately trying to assign a window to it, that's not going to work. So now that we're in the, basically now we're in, you have the window context when you're accessing that, assigning that value. Now everything's good. All right, great. So let me zoom in a little bit because this is going to be a little bit hard to read probably on the screen. So we get directory handle. You can see here, oh, this is great. So we have here desktop. So I'm going to create a new folder and we're going to call this local API prototype. Okay, so this is the folder we have. And so when I save it, you see here we'll be able to view files. Okay, it doesn't say anything about writing, but we'll deal with that later. And then we get an actual directory handle, which is pretty great. Okay, this is pretty cool. So first thing first, check. We have the ability for users to set up and create, basically select the folder. So now that we have that, the next thing that we want to deal with is the ability to actually make sure that we can write a file into it. And so for the purposes of this exercise, I've been on a one-piece vendor. So let's just say like one-piece crew, right? We want to create an app that lets you track and manage the crew as you add different people to the one-piece crew. Now, the thing is that, so typically, right, if you were to do this, let me see. How do we want to do this? Yeah, let's just do it on one file for now to keep things a little bit simpler. So let's see, const crew equals a ref that is an empty array. And we could have something like new member is a ref that is just a string. And so we could do something as simple as vmodel new member, right? And then we can say that on key up enter, we're going to say, okay, we're going to function add member, right? And then we can see Copilot's done its thing, crew value, push value, reset the thing. Great, that's actually what I want. Perfect. All right, so add member, this is great. That should do the trick. And then just to make sure this is showing up correctly, we can v4 through the member in crew. And then we'll just keep the simple key where we'll just say the member, and then we'll do the index like that. And then we can just say, scroll down, member. Okay, that should do the trick. And so now we can say Luffy, and we can say Zoro. All right, Nami, great. Okay, so it's working, but again, one of the things we're talking about is the ability to store data and actually either ingest it later to actually load into your app so that you can see all this stuff. Because let's face it, once we refresh this, everything's gone. And there are definitely multiple ways of working with local data, once again. So just enumerate some of the common ones that you'll deal with when you're working with web technologies is you have the ability to do things like local storage. So actually, let me just do a little bit here so we have it. So you can see here, we can have local storage. There is IndexedDB as well, which is IDB. You'll see referenced a lot on different articles, which is basically a database option for you to play with. And those are like the two kind of main ones. And at some point, I do know there is a reason to move into those for different reasons in terms of performance and stuff. But remember, our goal today is to build a prototype around working with local file systems so we just have that practice. Because then another session, we can figure out how to integrate stuff because we'll talk about some of the limitations of that in a little bit. Okay, cool. All right. Now that we have, let me bump this up a bit so it's a bit easier to read. All right, we have the ability to get a directory, which is great. And so what I want to do here is let's do this. Let's call this local file setting, right? Just like that. There you go. That like breaks it up a bit. We have the okay. So then what I do want to show is we want to show the directory handle just like this. So right now, if we go ahead and add this, select, we can view it. Okay, so something appears basically. So actually, let's make this a little bit easier. Okay, something does appear, which is fine. Now, it's not readable at the moment, although maybe we can make it readable. Let's see. Free, then there. No, that didn't do anything for it. Yep, so we're fine. Okay. So we have a handle because if we refresh, we know this handle's gone. The next step we got to do is be able to actually create said file. So how do we create a file? Let's take a quick look at this doc. So what we want to do is we want to actually create a file in, creating or accessing files in a directory. Okay, here's something interesting. Okay, so we can create a new directory called documents, create a new file. Okay, so we have a handle here. We have a get file handle. And if you get it, and with the create true. Okay, so this is the one we want to deal with. So if we have an async function for create file, right? So it clearly looks like you get some sort of file handle that will hold where the file is. And then we basically get this handle thing, which is gonna come from the directory handle.value, which is this thing we have up here. So this is the fact that I have a comment for this is also why. Okay, directory handle, I'm just being explicit. That way, so there's directory handle.value, this is great. And then we have this directory handle, this is great. Okay, so we have the ability to directory.handle value. So basically what we're learning now is that the directory handle has a built-in function called get file handle. And the get file handle then will take a certain file structure, and then we'll actually then create said file, I guess, inside of it, which is kind of interesting. So we're going to go ahead and actually, we're just going to get a little creative in advance. And instead of just running this, we're going to have it take on a, we'll call it member name. Keep it real simple right now. And then rather than just push it directly, we're going to push it, but then we're going to say create file. And then, let's see this. So I think I need to do that. We'll sync create file. And then we'll add the new member dot value here. So what we're doing is we're hoping that it will create a file with the member name, and then the member name is going to get dropped inside of here. And we're going to make it for now just like a JSON file. Okay. That's all we're going to do. And then that's it, actually. We'll just return a new file. Okay, we'll return a new file handle like this. Okay. Let's see if this works. Okay, so going inside of here, now we have this. We're going to get the handle first, and then we're going to do a local file API prototype. All right, yep, we can view it inside of here, although nothing updated. I expected this to have a handle. Why did it not have a handle? Oh, silly me. I did not update the reference. All right, there you go, directory handle. Great, that did update correctly. Now, if I do Luffy and hit enter, okay, here we go. Now this is where it actually wants to save changes to it. Okay, sure, we can save changes. Zoro, okay, great. So now what we want to do is let's open up our Finder, and inside of here, and check that. We actually have the ability to create new files just like that, which is pretty exciting because we actually haven't done too much in terms of basically been using some browser APIs to create said file. Now, the thing I'm thinking of immediately, though, is one, let's commit the work that we've done so far. So, gonna come inside of here and, okay. So this is a new feature. User can set and create files in it. Okay. The thing about this, though, is that obviously data is more complex than just creating this simple file, right? We want to be able to store data in there. So my question here is, how do we actually write data to the file? Because all we've done is really just create new files. So let's go ahead and do that. So we see here that get file handle will create it. How do you add renaming, moving, drop file, access origin, opening, saving, modifying existing file or directory. Let's get a general. Yeah, okay, that's fine. Write the file. Okay, how about this? Write description types handle, show save file picker. I mean, that's fine. Here we go. Okay, so write file is where you create the file handle, create, right? Okay, here we go. All right, so we want to be able to update said file. So let's see, function update file. All right. So it looks like, okay, it looks like they actually did do the general scaffolding for us, which is fine. So, because when you're updating a file, you're always writing to it. So I understand why they said it that way. So that's fine. Let's call that write. Let's leave it as write handle or write file. It takes in a file handle and then any other contents. It'll go through and just kind of do its thing. Okay. Simple. That seems straightforward enough. And so the question here is, once we've created the file, okay, here we go. So we could do const file handle. It'll create the file. Then we would want to await write file stringify. Okay, cool. So that means I kind of like what Copilot did for me here, because it's already knowing that rather than pass in a JSON object, right, which you can't do, you need to serialize it, turn it into a string. Hence why we can see here, it's the name, new member.value, then clear it. That seems pretty good to me, honestly. So let's give that a test. So we go back now, go inside of here, and then we go inside and say Luffy, and Zoro. Oh, something is funky. Cannot read properties of get file handle. Okay, hang on a sec. Get file handle. Okay. Oh, of course. Yeah, that makes sense. So first we need to actually set the file, right? We'll see Luffy again. We can save changes. 0x9o in the chat. How's it going? So the local file API or the file system access API, it is fairly new. It's not on all the browsers. I would say it's probably been out for about maybe a year or so. Don't quote me on that. I'll look that up later. But I would say this is also one of the reasons why I wanted to play with it, because I do think from what I've worked with in the past and as I'm getting back into it, it's accessible enough that I think once we expose it, I don't know, like if I create like a composable library for people to just kind of get inside and just use it, I do think more and more people would be happy to just use local files as their data source rather than having to create a whole database instance and everything, which I do think is a blocker for those who are looking to prototype. I know there are plenty of programming purists who would say, oh, well, that's not going to work long-term, scalability, yada, yada. Yes, and as we say actually, I don't know if it's a programming term, but they say it's yacht problem, right? It's a problem that we'll have when we deal with it. A lot of times when we're we're trying stuff out, it's important to be able to just kind of make things malleable and easy to access. And I think the file system access API from Chrome is one of the things that seems to be doing a good job of that. Okay, so we've done this. Looks like we've created Luffy from it. And so now actually, what I'm doing? I should do this. Let me add that folder to the workspace like this, so we can have it. And then we'll see here that we look and say, hey, it actually did write it correctly. So this does mean that, this is kind of exciting. Okay, so we've learned how to, oh, so they add new member, hold up. So we've learned to write to the file, which is fine. We've created it. And then what if we wanted to actually then, okay, hold up. I'm getting ahead of myself. Hold up. Okay, one thing at a time. We have the ability now, user can actually write to the file, okay? Emit feature, user can write to the file. Okay, good enough. All right. Now that we've written it, this is good. So we have this more or less how we want to do it. We won't talk about updating just yet. That's something we do want to do. So let me just add this here to do. Update member info. So we're gonna don't want to get ahead of myself. But what we do want to let people do is delete the member, right? So we basically we know kind of in advance we'd have the ability to delete member, and there'll probably be some parameter we need to pass in. But we can basically assume that after each member, let's just assume there is a button that has a trash can for delete, and then we would say delete member. Now at this point, most likely what we want to do is just grab the member directly and just pass that in. So let's just say member here. And for now, let's just make sure this works with the member here, which is great. So now, again, we don't need the directory handle, which is fine. So now here we do this, and we got it. Dot. There you go. It works. Okay. So our button works. 0x, I see you in the chat. My guess is that you'll be using it with Obsidian somehow. Yes, you have solid insight into where I'm thinking, where it would be great if I could at some point make it easy for people to interface directly with their Obsidian Vault so that they can query against it. And the reason I'm thinking of this is because this is a little bit of a sidebar, but I have been trying to look into different plugins that exist in the Obsidian API system. And so there is one, so people have this as a reference, obsidian-local-rest-api. This one really struck my interest because, and again, let me add this to the resources so that we have this for later. The idea was that it would allow you to access your notes, like basically expose your notes through the Obsidian API through an additional localhost port. I spent some time trying to set it up, and I'm pretty sure I'm dealing with some cross-origin issues, or you also call it cores. And so because it wasn't so simple to do, and I didn't find a clear path to it, I did want to find, I thought it would be good just to figure out a way to kind of do it normally. So you give your user access to the vault, and then from there, the vault can do things. Now, granted, we lose access to the built-in Obsidian stuff, which I think would be a bit of a loss. But in the meantime, until I figure out how this would work, or more importantly, if this is even the right solution, yeah, I'd like to be able to allow, wouldn't that be kind of, in my world, kind of an ideal world where you have your notes or you're taking stuff and you have your data and you have web apps that if you built a prototype because you wanted to do something to interface with it, that you could just work with it and do stuff with it. And granted, now some people would say, of course, there's the Obsidian plugin ecosystem you could get into, and that would basically give you the same idea. But one of the things I don't like about that approach is that it does have a little bit of a learning curve right now for those who do want to get into the Obsidian ecosystem. And I like to kind of, I usually, with a lot of stuff I do, I try to clear a lot of learning barriers so that people can just go in and do stuff. And so if you're not like an Obsidian, you're not totally bought into the Obsidian API, but you like using it for some note taking, but you still want to query, then I give you a way to do that. But more importantly, if you don't want to do Obsidian, you want to do other stuff, this would still allow you to do that. So personally, yes, I'd like to eventually integrate some sort of Obsidian thing with it, but that is definitely not in this section or this particular session. Okay. Cool. So what do we got so far? We're in the midst of trying to learn how to delete things. All right. All right. So we can delete folders in the directory remove entry. So it looks like, once we have the directory handle, it's really just a function that we call. That's pretty darn cool. It can be recursive as well. So if you just delete the folder, it'll just automatically wipe everything out inside, which is great. Or if you have the file handle directly, you can just use the remove handle. Okay, that seems straightforward enough. So knowing that, what this tells me then is a couple of things. Well, it's a little tricky because right now what you'll notice is the file handles I don't think can be JSONified, because normally you would think you would add a property to, I guess we can just try it real quick. So what am I saying here? So what I'm saying here is, let's just say we have a file handle, right? That is a ref. That's not actually what I'm thinking of here. Okay, hold up. I tend to get away from myself when I'm building stuff. Let's focus on the one solution first. The minimum viable product for deleting stuff is that we get the member and we delete it. So what I'm thinking here is we actually would be able to say, we have the directory handle as a reference. And so theoretically, there's nothing stopping us from saying value. Yeah, I think it's remove entry, we said. Yeah, remove entry. And then we know that we're naming it member JSON. Or JSON. And then the other thing is that we can just filter it out right here so that the crew itself is also deleted. So two different things that we should be able to do. And this is the simplest barrier of entry at this point. So let's go inside of here. So we get inside, boom. Now, this is something we do need to do. So let's make a note of this too. To do read files from directory and populate data. Because we actually have data already. So it's actually kind of, we haven't gotten to the point where we're actually updating it. So that's actually something we need to do before I move on to some of the other stuff. So we have Luffy here. We have, oh, it did not clear. Oh, yeah, of course. I forgot. Select the directory. Yes, thank you. Luffy, great, save. Zoro, Nami, this is great. We can see here, if we look inside, boom, boom, boom. Luffy, Nami, Zoro. Great. All of them look good. Now, let's go ahead and delete Zoro. So we delete Zoro. Zoro did get removed reactively from our dataset, which is great. And we notice it did also remove from our actual local JSON. This is great. Okay, easy enough. Let's not overcomplicate things. And this is already a win. So git commit feature user can delete data from local file system and app. Boom. Okay, cool. Boom, boom, boom. Okay, now the other thing though, what we didn't do is once you select the directory, we really want to be able to read the directory, read everything in the directory and then populate it. Because at this point, we have a pretty simple model as far as how the data is constructed. So here we go. We have this enumerating its content right now. And so we have 408 entry every here, cons entry kind name. Okay, let's see what happens with this actually. So let's call this is a read. If you need to get file, obtain individual file sizes, do not await in parallel. You do promises. Okay, because if you get the file, then you can do the stuff. Okay. That one seems a little bit more complicated. Let's start with this very simple one right here. So this will be an async function because we're now working with the local file system. So this will be to read files. And this is where we're going to do this. Now, rather than just, we'll call it directory handle .value.values because it is a ref right now. And then, yeah, let's just let that log out right now. And then when we get the directory handle, let's actually go ahead and await the read files on that, just like that. Okay, that should do the trick. So let's go ahead and see what's going on here. Console, boom, get directory, select. Okay, so it's gotten all the files, which is good, inside of here. Now, the thing is, though, we'd ideally go through each file, read its content. So hold on, I'm saying this aloud. I should write this down. We should go inside. We should read each file's content, push it into the app. Yes. Okay. So in order to read the file, I think this is where we get into part 2 of that article, where we basically only got into the entry, but we want to read it. And so if I'm breaking this down correctly, what we see here is we have a bunch of promises. And rather than doing it individually, like await, a bunch of promises that will resolve together. And so we check to make sure it's a file. If it's a file, then we push the get file, and then we do the thing with it. Okay, I can follow that. So this means now that, okay, we're not going to do this. We're going to have this promises that will await for everything. Then we're going to basically do a quick check to make sure that the actual entry, basically like to make sure that whatever it is inside of the directory is an actual file. And that's fine for now. Probably at some point you would want to do some sort of check on like, is it a JSON file? Because you don't want to just read everything. There probably would be something to be done programmatically about that. But anyhow, we get promises that push entry.file. Then looks like it's just returning it. But that's not what I wanted to do. I don't want it to just return this bit. But we'll see what happens here actually. Then log promise all promises. Let's see what happens. Because this is not quite, so this is still a to-do. Theoretically, this promises that push that get file should read everything, and that should do the trick. Okay, so back to our test, refresh. Ooh, did not like that. There you go, like that. Okay, much better. Okay, so we open this up, we say select, we say view. As you can see, it's going through, it's read everything correctly, so this is good. And so as it's going through, it's doing that. So what we can do, actually, oh, wait. No. Return file. I want to inspect the file right now. So hopefully this works. Okay, so refresh. Get the directory. Yes. Okay, object.file. That's good. Okay, that's fine. So we can just simply await all the promises and just like that. No. Log file. Okay, refresh. Boom. Select. View. Okay, cool. Let's see what actually this looks. So we have when it was modified. This is cool. Name. Yep. What? Oh, okay. Size. Get. Type. Application.json. Okay, that's not what I want though. I want to read the stuff from the, it almost like, I don't even know if read file is even the correct, because it just got the file, but didn't read it. Resolving the path. Oh, read file. Okay, here we go. We have the file handle. Sure. Okay, let's assume we have the file handle already. Yep. File.text. Here we go. Okay. So this means, is it a function? It is a function. Right, save. Oh, this is exciting. Okay. Fresh. Get directory. Select. View files. Ooh, it's a promise. Promise result. Oh, that makes sense. That makes sense. Hold up. Because when it's logged, it's still a promise. I think that makes sense. Hang on. Yes. File nami.json. Yeah. Okay, hold up. Entry.file await all promises. Yeah. Okay. Oh, I'm not returning anything though. So read files. Const files equals await promises, then log files, I guess. Something's funky. I know something's funky. I just got to figure out what it is. Okay, so we view the file. We have a bunch of promises that are being resolved, and that's fine, I guess. I don't think so. Return files. Okay, so the read files would be there, meaning that when we call read files here, const files equals this, log files. All right, so now we should get just to distinguish it real quick in case I have another console log. Clear, whoop, that's not what I want at all. Clear, refresh, get directory, select. Yep. Yeah, how do I access any of that? That doesn't make any sense. Files, oh. Yep. No, it says object promise. Because you want that to resolve. Maybe that was my mistake. Okay, looking back at the docs. Opening and enumerating its concepts. Going through console await all promises. Yeah. So then promises push get file, then do what? File.text. Okay. Because that's what I want. I just want this. Or would it be crazy to think that you could say crew.value.put file.text? Would that be too much of a stretch? Maybe. All right, we'll find out. we shall find out. That's what we do. We're building together right now. View files. Oh, okay. That's good. That's not good. Okay, so we can see here, we actually got named Nami correctly inside of here. But at this point, it's still a promise, so that's why that doesn't work. And then by that point, yeah, okay, so return await this. I think that should do it. And then now, bum, 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 bum. Okay. Oh, that's good. Yeah, that's a good thing. Because, well, we have strings right now, which is not the greatest, but what this means then is that file for each file, JSON.parse to push name. Sure, let's keep it that simple right now. Here we go, select. Hey, there we go, we got Nami again. Whoop. Save, delete, Zoro, Sanji, chop. Okay, everything is being populated. Refresh, everything's gone. Get set, select, view files, everything's good. Okay, this is great. So this is actually working as expected at this point. Because what we can see here, we can see all our data, and we can actually do quite a bit with that. So let me see, do I have any more console logs in here? We're not going to worry about that. Consoles. Okay, so we still don't have the ability to update info. We have the ability now, let's see, push, read each. Wait, no, we want to do that here. So there we go. So we have the ability now to read the file content, read files, push into app data. That's kind of what we just did. Okay, cool. Great. So this is like a very simple, like, hey, I have an app. I want to work on stuff. So I'm going to have this directory I saved of all my stuff. Boom. Great. Now I can just play with stuff. I can just keep at it. We got Frankie. Yes. We got Brooke. Everything works as expected. This is super cool because now, okay, granted, let me be clear, there are probably things I would guarantee it, things we can do to make this more modular, to like reuse it across different pages and apps. But again, our goal with this session is to get that prototype up. And we're not quite done on time. So I think we're actually going to push it now to the final piece of the CRUD part, which is the update. Now, theoretically, we already have updating because we can write anything to the file, but I'd like to do it in a little bit more of a useful way, I guess. Because just like being able to write blah to a file is one thing, but I have an idea for how we can use the remaining time. Okay, cool. So now what I'm going to do here is we're going to go ahead and, yeah. Okay, let's commit that. So feature user can read data from chosen directory. Boom. Okay, cool. All right. Now we're getting to the part that is going to be a little bit trickier because the update part is multi-step. So if we think of it this way, from an app perspective, we have this part where we have the one-piece crew. Now, typically what you want to do is you want to be able to modify this stuff because right now we got a singular name property. It's not super interesting. So what we want to be able to do is open a page for that open a page for that crew member, see attributes of that thing, and then as we go through and modify stuff, update the local data, because that's what you really want to update. And that way it all stitches together. And more importantly, we don't have to keep this all standardized at this point. We're not worried about like a schema that everyone has the same attributes. We're just worried about, can we go in and do said thing? So what we're going to do now is we're going to create a pages directory. And then we're going to create okay, so first thing first, we're going to need an index.view because this will be the root page. And we can basically strip all of this out because I believe it's a Nuxt page is what we're going to do. I believe it's Nuxt page. Hopefully this is right. If not, we'll find out shortly. And it should load the home page, which is this. Because we're now moving away from your single file or single page application into something that actually uses a route. So I don't think this will work. Oh, it did work. Oh, they've made the reloading so much better. Fantastic. So again, let's just make sure everything works as expected. Boom. Perfect. Great. Now, next thing we want to do now inside of pages is we have the crew, right? So let's create a new folder for crew. And then we're going to have a dynamic member dot basically key here. Meaning that when we come inside of here, we should be able to use route equals use. Oh, I thought it was use. Interesting. No, I want to use the current route. Thought there's use router, but there should be just use route, I thought. Am I wrong? Because I want to get the current route equals use. It's not auto-completing for me, so I'm a little concerned. Use route? Yep. Route. Yeah, it is use route. I don't know why it's not auto-completing, but I was right. Okay, then we log the route, and then we kind of go from there. Why is it not happy with this? I'm a little concerned about that, but that's okay. We're going to go ahead and say crew member page like that. And then before we do anything else, we're going to go ahead and inside of this list, we're going to wrap the member name with a Nuxt link component. And we're going to go to a specific page. We're going to go to /crew/member. Just like that. Okay. So boom, boom, boom. Everything's linked up. It looks good. And so now if we click on it, okay, that's not good. Refresh. Get this open. Yep. Okay. So it didn't like it because I think I totally botched something. Nuxt link to /crew. What did it not like? Oh, silly me. This is dynamic. I need to vbind that piece. Let's go back. Go back. Boom. Yep. Zorro. Great. So we can see here Zorro now has this router object, which if we look at the, is it params I want to say? Yeah, params. So, for those new to the sort of Nuxt 3 ecosystem, the fact that we have the square bracket here inside of the page name is the parameter. They see the name of the parameter that we have. Because this is a dynamic piece. We don't want to create an individual page for each team member at this point. So that means that what we can do is when we come inside of here, we can basically say route.params.member. And then, yep, I actually don't think we need to do that. Okay, let's see. Const member name equals, let's just make it a computed property just to make it easier. And then there you go. That's what that is. It's interesting that the stuff is breaking. But anyways, it's fine. We can then say member name page like that. And then I did something wrong again. There we go. Computed. Yeah, so weird that it's having the issue. Okay, Zorro page. This is great. And then we come back here. Again, so one of the things you have noticed, though, is that every time we go back and we move around, we lose the stored file handle. So that's one of the things I think I'll add as like a note of like, local file is great, but this is where we will eventually need to reach out to something different in terms of being able to store the file handles that we've gotten permissions for. And from last I did the research, local storage, which is usually the easiest one to work with, will not work because it's considered a serializable data, which I think the easiest way of framing that is that it's just not a simple string that you can just put together. There's a bunch of stuff associated with it. So you can't just stringify it and then JSON parse it. It takes more work than that. That is not what we're handling today. We are simply just handling the workings of this. And then hopefully, once we kind of work this out and figure it out, ideally there would be an integration I would add to this repo, probably maybe like another build with Ben, where we add that ability to persist permissions and the file directory handles. Once you persist those things, then I think we basically have our local file system API prototype. But for now, persistence is not something that I don't see how we would get to that today. So I did want to address that head on. Okay, now that we have this though, we have, okay, right. Oh, I forgot. Okay, so a couple things happens. One, because we are coming on this page, we'd ideally like to then open the specific file around that. So we do know that if we look inside of the file system access API, you'll notice that we can read a specific file from it. And so we could open the file picker, and this would allow you to pick the thing directly, which is nice. But at this point, if someone's in the app, I would prefer to just kind of go into it. In other words, let's always assume at this particular case in time that the user has opened the directory at the home page and they're just moving through the app, meaning, again, we're going to assume persistence does exist. If that is the case, then what we need to do is to be able to get said file handle. Okay, so this is going to be, okay, let's do this first thing first. Okay, first thing first, at this point, to fake persistence, what we need to do, or we're not even going to fake it, we're literally just going to redo this part. So it looks like at this point, we are graduating our functions to something that can be reusable. So this is where I would say our composables folders come into play. And so I'm going to call this use file system API.ts. And inside of here, we're going to get a couple of things. We're going to have this directory handle. Actually, we're going to move basically most of the stuff. We have the get file, we have create file. So let's make this a little bit alphabetical to make it a little bit easier. Create, get, write. And then the other thing we got to do is we got to read set files. Okay, so we have the ability to read files. Then from here, so we saw that to deal with later. We have the ability to delete. Ooh, this is not quite okay. So so here we go. This is a to do. Factor this to a utility function, basically. And then add member, that's fine. Write file, this is good. Okay, so we save this. Things are going to be weird right now because we don't have this ready. So we can say export const use file system API, and it's a function that will return all of this. Function. It's just an object that we can this around. What's wrong? Export const equals function any. Oh, silly me. Yes. Okay. That's not what I want. Yes, we can have a function that returns this. There we go. And then inside of here, we should have a const directory handle, a ref of null first to start. Then we should be able to, okay, we have this, we're going to try to destructure this from use file system access API from the composables. And then this way we'll get our directory handle, we get the ability to write the file, and we get the ability to, oh, that's it, I think. Save. Okay, I'm gonna be really surprised if this works without any additional work, only because things usually cannot destructure because it is unidentifiable. Okay, hang on. Export const file system access file system API. File system API. Yep. It's a function. Const's a function, and you run it, you get all this stuff. Let's see. You're currently inside the index page. Use file system API.ts. Yes. Why don't you like it? Okay, let me just start by at least restarting the server. Yep. So it doesn't like oh, wait. But it's part of the function. Okay, hold up. I think I'm doing something wrong. Next 3 composable. Let's create a quick return. Oh, silly me. That's right. Because it's a function now, we actually have to explicitly define everything we're returning. So this way you can actually destructure. Silly me. Forgot about that. Okay. Now we so good. Yeah, I'm not worried about type checking and stuff right now. Okay, great. That was my mistake. Okay, so if this did not get anything. Why? Because if you looked at the index.view, is trying to, okay, got it. So async function, select directory like that. And then this is where we'd ideally use our composable here, where we have the get direct. Okay, so again, I'm gonna. Is there anyone else that uses get directory? Be very explicit. Shortcuts are tricky. So okay, there we go, and then boom. Okay, then from here we await get directory handle like that, and then this way this will be select directory like that. Okay, that should be good. We refresh. Did not like that again. Why? Refresh again. Click. Get directory handle is not defined. Okay, so that's fine. Where is get directory handle? Oh, yeah, I did not destruct that. Okay, now we should be good. Perfect. Save. View. Okay, good. Crew is not defined. That's totally fine. Okay, so clearly I do need to do some stuff. Okay. We don't want to do this here. Oh, right. Okay. Yep. So we simply get the directory picker. Then we get the read file. Okay. So this is where we're going to need to also do read files here. Now, granted, there is most likely a better way of doing this right now. But for now, we're just working with this. Okay, refresh. Select. Yeah, perfect. Okay, everything works. Cool. Okay, so what we've done here is we've done quick little refactor to have a composable that will track all this stuff. Yeah, okay. Git commit refactor, create composable to centralize file system API usage. And then the other thing we want to do real quick though is, actually, I do want to include that app with that. So let's do that. Wait, what was this? Oh yeah, this is where we refactor that. That's fine. Okay, there you go. And then we feature user can see specific page or crew member. Okay, great. All right. So now what I was thinking of is we would basically redo that. So we would import, so const equals use file system API. Now here's the thing. It's going to say it can't find it, but Nuxt 3 is supposed to import everything automatically. So I should be able to say get directory handle like this. And then on mounted, no, just one on the mounted. On mounted, basically, this autocomplete. For whatever reason, it is botching this. We should be able to run this. Although this should be async. This should be await. Save. Okay. Boom. Boom. Okay. All right. So I just faked persistence is what I just did. Because now we technically have the directory handle. Now that we have it, we need to read said file. And the way we want to read said file is, let's see, how do we want to do this? So we do have a read files, right? But it reads a bunch of stuff. This is gonna kick my butt. I hate it when it's just off by one, but we'll read file. And so read file, actually, let's see what Copilot tells us. I don't want to do that. What if I want to programmatically do the file handle? I do vaguely remember we had something here where we could get file from the directory handle. The directory handle had this way of, yeah, so we can get file handle. Okay, so rather than do it like this, we would say directory handle, right, dot value dot get file handle. And then this is where we would get, once again, actually, this is actually similar. We would get this, but this time we wouldn't create it. So we just get the file, just like that. Then we, from the file handle, get the file. Then we get back the text. Then we get its contents. Oh, I think this should work. Okay. Okay. So then, theoretically, if we get the read file from the use file system API, we then should be able to say, oh, wait, I do need do I need, no, I don't need the directory handle. That should already be in there. Await read file, and this time we're going to pass the member name dot value. I think that's it. Oh, this seems way too easy. Hold up. Const member info. Log in member info. Hold up. No way. Wait, refresh. Something broke. That's okay. Must be handling a user gesture to show file picker. Interesting. It doesn't like it when when I refresh the page like that. Something's funny. Okay, yep. Okay, so deal with that later. That won't be an issue. Read file is not a function. Okay, why is read file not a function? Use file system API. Yep. Oh, darn it. You got to export this thing. Yep. Why? Okay, so it doesn't like that, which is fine because it's basically, okay, the TLDR from what I understand is it's basically saying it's afraid that you're programmatically doing it and it's not a user actually consenting. So as you can see here, when I click, there's kind of like oh, it's a user kind of thing. Okay. Oh, that did work. That did work exactly as I was hoping. Okay, so this is cool because now what we have here is we have the member info. So we could say heck, let's just do that. So member info dot, okay, hold on. Details equals JSON.parse details. Yep. And then this way, we can just see member info. Okay, cool. So once again, let's try this. Zoro. Yep, that worked. That worked. Okay, cool. So now we can actually see the details on that. And the last bit is we want to actually add new properties to it. So, basically be able to just take it in and add stuff to it, really. So, okay, for the sake of making this easier, let's call this unique info. It's a ref that is going to be a string. We're going to do a text area box because we don't have enough time to do like a whole forms thing. So I'm going to do this on unique info like that. So we have this here. We should be able to do things like, like weapon, sword, for example, something like this. Which is fine because then, okay, so good. And then what I want to do real quick, unique info JSON is a computer property that, oh, it looks like Copilot did predict it. Yep, that's what I want. And so to show this works, we're going to do unique info JSON that. So then it'll be like weapon, sword. Okay, so that did JSON, no, JSON.parse, that's what I want. Whoop. Oh, okay. If unique info is true, then return this. Else return no unique info. That was a funny prediction by Copilot. Actually, kind of surprising that. Okay, so like that should do it. Oh, that bothers me though. Okay, hold up. Computed function that if unique value has stuff, return JSON.parse. Else, what's wrong with this? What's wrong with this? It does not like it. Yep. Boom. Boom. Thorough. Crash. Unexpected end of JSON input. Yep. Member info.value.parse. Okay, I think I broke this part. Hang on. That worked. That worked. Okay. Basically, what I'm trying to do here is I was trying to shortcut a way for us to turn this into like, so it would be like weapons, swords, and then populate it into the thing. But it's okay. One thing at a time. So now that we have that info, we can then have a, I'm going to do this. Click update member, update member, like that. And so once we update the member, oh, I want that on a new line, please. Keep it simple. Oh, there we go. Once we click update member, what we'd like to be able to do, async function update member, is we would actually then use the write file that we got before. And so how do we have this? We have the write file that gets the file handle, then the content. Okay. So this does mean the file handle is kind of important, because otherwise you can't write to the file handle. So we could read file directly get file handle. Okay. So this means we need a separate function for get file handle with the member name, because we need to basically make this part its own thing, be able to get the file handle at any point. Yep. Member name. My brain. Okay, hold up. And then return the file handle like this. Or no, not even necessary. We could just say file handle.value equals file handle. Which I don't love this, but from a naming perspective, so let's do this real quick. Temp, like that. Okay, now that we have that, we should be able to then get file handle that. Okay. Okay. Const file handle goes get file handle. I wonder if that's actually the cleanest way, really, to be quite honest with you. Because once you've read the file, theoretically, okay. Anyways, don't think too hard on this. Get file handle returns that. Then get file handle. It does assign it, but you know what though? Let's actually return the temp file handle. Okay. And then let's just see if that works. Log file handle. Okay, that should. We go back. open, got it. Zoro, got it. Update. Get file handle is not defined. That makes sense because we haven't put it there. That. So refresh. Yeah, I know. Clear. So we get the directory. We're good. Go to Zoro. Open it up. Still good. Doesn't like something because we can't find something. Well, that's fine. And then we get this promise and it's fulfilled. Okay, and we get the file system handle. So for today, for the prototype, we actually got pretty far. I did get we got a little bit lost towards the end regarding the update piece because I was trying to figure out a clean way for us to do that. But it looks like that'll have to be saved for another session. But on the other hand, I would say the session was a success as far as being able to create a prototype that actually, you can see how that might possibly scale, especially when we start adding directories and you can have different types of data stored certain places. But it looks like we definitely need another session of Build with Ben as we look through this prototype and build it out. So that said, thanks everyone for joining me today. Those who are here live, it's been a blast. And for those watching, thanks for all your support. The comments as I've been going through things has been really helpful. All right, everyone, thanks for watching and I'll catch you all next time. Bye.